And so we had a very simple idea. It was like, rather than moving air around, why don't we just move the plants? We designed a robotic system that instead of you going up to the top, you just kind of rotate the plants through.
That's Oren Falkowitz, co-founder of Area 2 Farms, a vertical farming startup that raised $9 million.
One of my investors is a shark, Alexis Ohanian. He's a great guy.
After reimagining the vertical farm, Oren is now using franchising to expand, and he lays out why it all makes sense.
Farmers are the original entrepreneurs in this country, right? It's just a hand in glove fit for what the model should be. It should not only be pizza restaurants. It supports a full range of crops, carrots, radishes, potatoes. So we've got 2 farms in Virginia. And so in Arlington, we've been open for maybe 3 years now.
And what has the response been like from the community? If you're considering buying a franchise, go to empirespod.com for a free consultation. Well, we'll start with the whole mantra of Area 2. Seems to be move the farm, not the food. What do you think is broken with the existing system today?
We're going to need a lot more time, I think, maybe for that. But, in short, everything. Maybe to take a step back, I grew up in South Florida, and people don't think of that as like an agricultural place or a place with like a rural background. But, I distinctly remember my mom taking me strawberry picking, and we got our orange juice from a place called Blood's Orange Grove. And everyone basically did. And it was the best, right? And it's just one of those things like everyone knows. But some time ago, Mr. Blood decided, I'm going to sell the land. I want to retire. And now it's apartments, shopping malls, and so forth. And that story, like, it exists all across the country in different forms. And sometimes people refer to this as like progress. Like progress came and it took away some of these lands or these places where food was produced that were close to us. But in that progress, a lot of good things get lost. And so part of that means that food today is grown pretty far away, and then it's shipped all across the country. And so that means today farmers, according to the USDA, get about 16 cents for every dollar that you spend at the store. The varieties of products you get are selected for transportation, not because they look beautiful or they taste good or they have a lot of nutrition. And the quality of the food, right, is significantly worse in terms of what it provides, to your body. So the simplest thing to do would be just to return farmers to the place where they've always been, which is as neighborhood leaders and as producers for us. And so that's what we mean by move the farm, not the food.
I know before when we talked about this, you mentioned like Power or Still Powers, these brands, was something like a franchise, like a cooperative. How has that developed over the past few decades?
Well, I think one of the myths about like a farmer is that if you close your eyes and you imagine like what is a farmer, you're going to get this kind of like rugged individual, maybe staring out, into the sunset.
I'm thinking of someone with overalls and like one of those straw
overalls,
hats.
Yeah, overalls. They've got this very pull yourself up by your bootstraps kind of look to their face. A Ford truck commercial, the whole kind of thing. And the reality is that anyone who's ever pursued farming from the time of our founders, all the way to today, it's always been a cooperative effort, right? So we like to say that behind every farmer is another farmer. And so when you look at the largest food brands today, Driscoll's Berries, they don't own any farms. They provide the brand, they provide the research and development, they provide the distribution for berry growers, actually all around the world, right? Not even just here in the United States. Land O'Lakes, it's not one farm that makes your butter, right? It's a cooperative of farms. Ocean Spray Cranberry, Tropicana Orange Juice, and so forth. So I like to call these like franchises in disguise, right? They're not really franchises, but the thing that they've done is they have standards, they have brand standards, they have some form of cooperation, but the thing that they've done negatively is they've hidden the farmer from the equation. And so you buy from a brand, and in a time not that long ago, that was beneficial, right? You could get products that you couldn't otherwise, maybe out of season, in season, and so forth. But really what we know today is that being able to buy local, having the trust, having thick relationships between where your food comes from, the people that grow it, is one of the highest, values that you can get when you're making a purchase.
I gotta imagine at one point there are if you have berries in your farm and you're selling it to Driscoll or you're under that kind of umbrella, at some point there had to have been some benefit to them, right? Or else they wouldn't have agreed to do it. So do you know specifically like what that was and at what point did it change and now sounds like they'd be better off just if they could sell locally and earn more.
I think the story of Mr. Blood that I was relaying, which is like, I've got this land, or the land has gotten too expensive, or we have like in cities, there were dairy farms in Manhattan where we are today, basically around the time of the Second World War. But sometimes like cities make choices. They create like Euclidean based like zoning laws, or they want to push disease or smell or odor, or people want to come in and put other things that they think are of a higher value. Now, look, you can have a debate as to whether or not the citrus orchard is the best use of Class A land, or it should be something else. But you can't debate that something gets lost in that name of like progress, and particularly with what we know about like health or food. And so I think as like people got moved further away, as land became more expensive, as it was harder to go to market in the more traditional sense, having distribution partners, having standards, being able to go to a store, which is a great American invention, the grocery store, right?
Yeah.
Being able to go and say like, these are of a high quality and you can trust them and we can meet certain food safety standards and so forth. Those are real values for people. But over time, that octopus has just sort of eaten the soul out of it. So it's not that the initial thought of it was poor, but I think when you take the human out of the loop, right? When you hide the human from the brand, you lose concepts of excellence, craftsmanship, ownership, things that really matter, particularly in the things that you put into your body, right? And so if people know, like if you go to Japan, there's like a guy who makes like the special cherry and he hand paints it and this, that, there's all this kind of stuff people are tangentially familiar with, but that's really all about ideas of craftsmanship, excellence, ownership. That quality really matters, when it comes to food. And we live in a time, I think, today when people have never been more interested in their food. I mean, I just saw a preview for a new Netflix show with Zach Galifianakis, almost entirely about this issue, right? It's like,
really?
Yeah, it just came out like this week. Like they have a
sweet.
preview, like talking about gardening, talking about a lot of things that I'll probably say, like, he's talking about it, partly a comedy, I think, to show me. It looks hilarious. I can't wait to see it, but also really tackling the key things, like people don't know where their food comes. There are surveys that show kids think food grows in grocery stores, right? People don't know, where to get their nutrients from. They take supplements, things that are unregulated, things that really have minimal benefits. Having relationships, at this intimate level is essential. I mean, it makes for an incredible business.
Yeah, and I hear you too on just this, like how far this idea of like the mass production and commercialization of the food that we're buying. I mean, it's at an insane scale.
I'd say it's even bigger than that. Like there's just been this idea over the last, 20 or 30 years about scale, right? And my friend Coco wrote this really good book. It's called Optimal Illusions. And there's a whole idea of like entrepreneurs and people who have gotten into business and they think about scale. Like if I just get to this next level, costs will come down or I'll be able to break through. But it turns out that optimization and scale can often be an illusion. And sometimes you really can't break through. Not everyone should try to be Jeff Bezos and Amazon and try to like dominate the world. And in more times than not, you lose a bit of yourself and it becomes really detrimental to the process. And, it's important to really have things that provide necessity public goods or like local goods. And those can be like really, really successful. I mean, I'm sure you're following you can be a plumber, you can be,
Oh yeah.
When the AI bots come for everything, a lot of these things are going to be the most important things in such a changing environment. But even when you go to like how our cities are changing, I mean, I just can't stand going places where I see the same 11 stores over and over again at the expense of, a really great craftsman or producer.
You've had from the outside looks like a pretty atypical path to this point. You founded two other companies in totally different arenas. And even before that, you worked at the NSA. I think that's where you started your career. So
yeah, I started as a spy for the government.
Okay. So let's talk about that. What motivated you to be in that career path?
To work for the government?
Yeah. Like where was your head at? Like do you have goals of working your way up in that organization? Because you've clearly gone in a different direction.
Well, no, that's true. That's true. My goal, like I think when I think back on it, was to do some sort of service, right? Okay. And I enjoyed working at the National Security Agency because it's a highly technical organization, got to work on really cool missions, got to work with some really great people. Some of them I founded companies with. It was really great. And, that's what it's all about for me. And the business I've started are kind of in the same thing. They're solving very specific problems for people with technology. And I think that idea of like service, sometimes it's a complicated concept for some people to understand. People who know it, know what missions are, they really get it. But being an entrepreneur, being a founder, being involved in the mission, service, they're all kind of one and the same, thing. It's kind of putting yourself out there to do something better, for other people. And to me, they're all really connected in straight ways. But, obviously when I was working as a, as a missile analyst at the National Security Agency, it didn't seem like you would become,
Startup founder
or a farmer. But then I found this Benjamin Franklin quote, which is that there are three ways to acquire wealth. The first is through war, which he says is stealing. The second is commerce, which he says cheating. And then the third, agriculture, which is the only honest way. And so, clearly I'm not the first person who's made this sort of a transition, and maybe there's something to it. And one of the funny things I always find is when I tell my friends that I'm become a farmer, they pause and they think that's odd. And then they always call me back, the next day. Do you think I could do that? Do you think I could be a farmer? What does it take to be a farmer? I'm really interested in this.
Yeah.
And so I think it's deep in the American psyche, and people really want to have a connection to the land, connection to their community. It's really magical to see plants grow. It's quite technical from the biology side, from the mechanical engineering, robotics, side. So we do a lot of really cool stuff, and it's fun. Yeah.
Well, are you able to talk about anything that you did at the NSA? Like, is anything declassified where you could like share a task or a mission that you did?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've not very often. I'm usually, like we talked about before, I'm usually interviewing guys who own Dunkin' Donuts franchises or Dave's Hot Chicken. It's not every day we get someone on the show who.
I mean, I love Dave's Hot Chicken. One of the best. They say one of the best indicators of like our military posture is like Domino's pizza orders at the Pentagon. It's like pizza.
Oh yeah,
there's like a whole
pizza tracker.
Yeah, there's a whole pizza tracker
account.
thing.
Yeah.
I started on February 6, 2006 in the National Security Agency as a ballistic missile analyst. So my job was to watch and predict like other countries and do technical analysis of their missiles. I worked on the computer hacking team, so I was responsible for hacking certain countries. And then I worked with the computer science research team for a long time, where we open source the database, which is kind of like the formation of my first business. I worked at US Cyber Command. I worked at the Office of the Iran Mission Manager for a little while. So I did a bunch of things, all connected in some ways, but they probably aren't interesting, to everyone here. But it was super fun. I mean, the whole thing about that you learn there is there are things that are greater than you that you're working on that, I'll tell you a small aside. So someone was asking me, how much of this problem do you think we can solve? And this is after I left the government. And I looked at them and I said, well, 100%. And they said, well, that's ridiculous. You can't be 100% everything. And it just reminded me of that when my time in the government, that is the goal, is to be perfect. It's like Friday Night Lights. Like, can you be perfect for one night? You can understand that it's hard to do that you make mistakes, that it's part of life, to do that, but it doesn't mean you wouldn't try. And it's an entire, organization and mission that's dedicated to excellence. And that, has really stuck with me through my whole life, is to really try to achieve that. And it's a really awesome, thing to do. A lot of young people really dedicated to crazy stuff that no one thinks is possible.
At what point did you flip the switch though and say, like, I want to be a founder, I want to start a company? Was it the idea of being an entrepreneur, or was it the specific problem that
so I never heard anything about this before.
Yeah.
And so one of the cool things about NSA is that we have like advisors, people from the outside that are working with us. And so a gentleman named John Frank, who is getting his PhD at MIT, he came to me one day and said, he was looking at the software we had developed. He said, you should make a startup out of this. And he says, you should make a company out of this. And I looked at him and said, what is a company? Like, I don't know. Like, I don't even know what
you're government. So
yeah, I work for the government. My whole, dream. I know everything about the government and all the different things about it. My whole worldview is sort of in that context. And so he worked with me. He explained to me how companies work, how stock works, how boards work, how, all these types of things. And then I just sort of decided, okay, I'll do it. And when I told, my bosses, my mentors that I was going to, they all kind of looked at me like, why would you do this? Startups are risky. You're going places here. Like you could make it, to the top. And I just thought, well, I just kind of want to try something different. And I did. And, that's how we get here. So
crazy. Do you want to give, obviously we're not going to get like super into the weeds, but the two companies, Squirrel, I think is how you pronounce one of them, and then Area One Securities the other.
Yeah.
Like just generally, like what did each one do? Because I mean, both led to acquisitions from big public companies, right?
Sure, yeah. So Squirrel was a open source database that we had developed at NSA. It had some particular security features that allowed like the co-mixing of different types of data together. Not an incredibly like great, startup, but learned a lot. It was an important sort of like learning milestone.
Yeah.
Then had the opportunity to move out to Silicon Valley and start Area One, kind of take the learnings, and we built a much bigger, business. Eventually, it was acquired 4 years ago this April by Cloudflare, which is a pretty large, publicly traded company.
Yeah.
For those who know it, but you've probably seen like the CAPTCHAs and the,
yes,
but
yeah, well,
like it's a big deal to me, but I don't know how much everyone.
If you're watching on YouTube, we'll pull up the image of that CAPTCHA.
People
will be like, that thing.
Oh, that thing. Yeah,
exactly.
That thing. But it's an incredible business and, great founders. And we found a really good home for it. And the team is really happy. So,
well, so that was, you said 4 years ago. Did you take time off after that?
No.
Okay. Were you already,
I don't
into the farming world at that point, or?
I don't do like time off or vacation. I'm, really motivated by the mission and, the opportunity to work with really talented people. So, something, noodling it and talking. I think of like my sort of process, if I would call it that, for starting something is like just walking around telling people I'm thinking about this and kind of seeing their reaction. And so similar to what I was saying before, like, oh, I'm thinking to become a farmer, or I'm a farmer, people kind of saying like, oh, that's odd. And then they all call back, say like, oh, do you think I could do it? What is that like? Or how excited they are. They start telling you, people you've known forever. Oh, I grow tomatoes in my backyard. They're so much better in the grocery store. The food is toxic. You start hearing all these, start saying like, yeah, this makes sense. Right. And, kind of like leaning into the broad strokes of what you want to build.
So at what point did you discover the problem and then really start to seriously think about building a business around it? Was it during your time?
I first became exposed to the style of, growing they were doing, which some people call like controlled environmental agriculture or vertical farming, when I first moved to Boston. So I was doing some mentoring at like an accelerator called Techstars. It's like a Y Combinator type of thing. And there was a great guy named there who had started a company called Freight Farms that was taking like shipping containers and turning them into grow facilities. And so I got really familiar with how that worked and his business. And when I was in California, it was kind of at the time that another end of the spectrum of this was happening. There's companies like Plenty and Bowery, and they were doing like massive mega plant factory versions of it. And so I kind of just would talk to them and learn from them. And I knew some of the growers and could just see like, wow, they're these really big polar opposites where one of them is kind of like too small and it doesn't seem like the guys can really make a business, although it's very good to like show up at a college campus or show up in a demonstration setup. Like people are really fascinated by it. And the other one is like a CIA lab where like they don't let you inside. They all wear these weird like ET, in ET, like where they wear the thing.
The hazmat suits?
Yeah, the hazmat suits. Like, and you're like, what are these guys? Like that part was always confusing to me as a kid. But, so there's like that and you're kind of like, that's weird. But why are they building this massive factory in my town and then shipping it across the country? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And so, as I got to, work with Tyler, who was a grower at Plenty and my co-founder at Area 2, so we're talking about there's got to be something in between those two where really the technology should be service towards people. Can we grow things where people can just pick them, so to speak, and, then kind of go from there. And then, of course, ideas around, well, you want it to have some semblance of scale, then, we could distribute the farms, right? And not the food, right? And that seems like an obvious thing to say, but it's a kind of a total unlock because nobody does that, right?
And
nobody tries to build more farms. They try to build bigger farms. They don't try to build like more farms. And so, we're very unique in that sense.
Okay. And some of those bigger scale farms that you were just, those companies.
All of them went bankrupt.
Yeah.
Not some of them. So almost all of them.
So you were from the get-go skeptical of the longevity of those models and you were deliberately then saying, okay, there's something here in this category, but the current players just aren't doing it the right way.
Yeah, I mean, there's really no reason to use technology to, like, it's kind of interesting to grow vertically. It's super uninteresting or undifferentiated to sell at Safeway or Kroger or
Yeah.
Publix or Whole Foods or whatever. And so I just never understood like why they wanted to do that. I mean, I guess I understand why people would come to that conclusion because it seems like an obvious like, distribution channel, but it doesn't match, with it. It's similar to what we see like I'm going to use, not to get like, weird because I'm a missile guy, but like to use a $5 million missile to shoot down a $10,000 drone. Like everyone knows the economic asymmetry of this is like really off. And there's lots of examples that like bring a gun to a knife fight or whatever. It is. That's kind of the thing that they were doing. And it's just very odd when the real value is to create a relationship between your grower, your food, and the people in that way that I had with Blood's Orange Groves or going strawberry picking, where you probably had growing up. And frankly, everyone that I've talked to is usually, well, yeah, we have this place.
Yeah.
Everyone kind of has that, but that seems to have gone away for some reason.
So what was step one for you in attacking vertical farming? Because you guys do have proprietary technology. Did you discover something in the existing tech that was out there that you thought this needs to be better? And I don't know where where it makes sense to start, because I know there's like hydroponics and greenhouses that already exist. So like indoor farming isn't new, but it's the way you guys are doing it is the differentiator here.
Yeah, no, indoor farming is not new. What we wanted to do was, okay, how can we bring the farm closer to people? So if you look at like maybe a near competitor technology to us, it would be like a greenhouse, like you were saying. But a greenhouse is massive, so you need like half a city block in order to do it.
They're big plots of land.
They're big. Yeah, they're just big. Like they're designed to be really big, and they're great, and they serve an amazing purpose. And the Dutch, are like the kings of like greenhouse growing, and it's like a whole thing, and they're amazing. But that doesn't work, right? Because you can't bring it, close to people. The second thing we really wanted to focus on, so the first thing is like, can you shrink the size of the farm? And we didn't know initially like what that size would be. And so we got ourselves like an 11,000 square foot warehouse, and we started designing. One of my favorite movies is the Founder, the Michael Keaton.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. Great. Yeah, it's a great the McDonald's movie.
Yes.
And there's a part where they're like doing a ballet in the parking lot, this kind of thing. I mean, that's basically what we did for the first couple of years, is like figure out how does it all sort of operate. And that movie, that scene was always in my mind. Like, how do you kind of shrink it? How do you put pressure on the people to work in smaller spaces? How do you get them to be efficient, or, for things to fit in like a bunch of Lego pieces? And so it's kind of like that part of it. The second part was really like, if you read anything about like a vertical farm, you'll read like basically two things. And these kind of struck me. It's kind of like seeing an M dash today. Like you kind of see it and then you can't like unsee it. And so even if there's a really good grammatical use for it, you think AI just wrote that. And so every article that was ever written about these companies would say they use 90% less water and they grow leafy greens and herbs well. Well, I can just tell you as a regular person, like I don't want to have a relationship with my time guy. Like I have no interest in knowing the guy that grows my mint. Like to want to have a relationship with a butcher or a baker, you want to have a sort of a broader set of differentiated staples. And so the only way to be able to do that would be able to use soil, right? And so to not be hydroponic. And so we want to shrink the farm, use soil, just for the simple practical nature of like to grow a carrot, right? And then the third thing was, what Tyler had learned from working in some of the largest vertical farms is that there happens to be this energy heat transfer issue when you go up, right? So every kid knows that heat rises. So when you stack plants, on top of each other, you get different stratifications of heat all the way up. And so the way that they had been doing it was really crude, where basically, to take just a small step back, plants like you and I have a circadian rhythm. So they want to wake up in the morning for it to warm up, like the sun goes up, and then the sun goes down, it gets dark, and they go back to sleep. So it makes sense, right? It's sort of a simple thing. So the way we do these big plant factories is they'd have lights on all the levels. They would turn the lights off at night, and then they would have like multi-million-dollar air conditioning or HVAC systems, and they would cool the room. And so it was all this energy and effort and cost to just cool the room. And so we had a very simple idea. It was like, rather than moving air around, why don't we just move the plants, right? And so that's what we designed is a robotic system that instead of you going up to the top, you just kind of rotate the plants through. And I can send you a video to share.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a very simple kind of thing. And so we developed a system that could be smaller, that was modular, that was robotic in solving the core technical problem, that uses 25% less lights because you don't need to turn them on and off. You just move the plants into their sleeping period, and you don't have to have any of the expense of the cost. And so we can grow at some of the highest yields in the world at fractions of the cost of what others, are spending. But most importantly, we can bring the farm directly in front of the people, go to direct, remove that 84% margin loss that you get from shipping it across the country, and you have a really nice, beautiful thing inside a neighborhood that people respond really well to.
Can we talk about that tech and that process a bit more? Like you said, instead of spending all the money on the HVAC, you guys are moving the plants. So, and I know we're going to show this, but still, there's a good number of listeners on Spotify and Apple who won't be watching it.
Sure.
Like where are you moving it to? Is it on like I'm imagining like a rotating conveyor belt where you're just moving it into like a cooler environment within the building?
No. Just think of it like as a pallet rack, right? So if you're at Home Depot and things are stacked up, so we just have a mechanism that takes the plants that are on the bottom and they just go up one level. And they go up one level and up, and the ones at the top come down to the bottom.
Oh,
it's kind of like that penguin thing as a kid, where the penguin goes up the stairs and then he slides down. It's like a little kid toy.
I don't know that one.
I don't know if that'll translate for Spotify, but it's a very simple, very simple mechanism, but it solves a lot of the problems and relatively tricky to get to work. But I mean the concept of it is like very straightforward.
But that's the core innovation, you would say, is the fact that you wanted to focus on moving on the system to move the plants.
Well, it's one of three things that we call this system the silo system work. The first is that it's modular. So as I was saying, compared to a greenhouse, you need a city block. We have these very small Lego-like pieces that come together.
Yeah.
So basically in the room we're sitting in, I could build you a farm, right? So we can kind of take over any space. That's kind of a first, key principle to it. The second is that it supports a full range of crops, not just lettuces and herbs. So we can do everything: carrots, radishes, potatoes, sweet potatoes, lettuces, herbs, and so forth. And so being able to handle the soil component. And the third is this temperature piece, which is you want some of that heat, but you don't want to fight the physics of the heat. You want to work with it. And so we solve sort of all three through the engineering disciplines.
Okay, amazing. And what the name Area 2, your other startups Area 1? Is there like some inspo there or like?
Yeah, it's just next.
So whatever you do next is gonna be Area 3. We can get.
I will not. I'm not doing anything after. This is it. Yeah,
oh.
This is it for me here.
Okay. All right. Well, let's talk about we got
a lot of work to do here.
Yeah, sure. No, I mean it's
exciting.
It's a big vision. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big vision.
You have a store or a farm open in Virginia.
Yeah.
How long has it been open? And can we talk about? I mean, I read about it online. Like the building is in. It's in between like two other stores. So it's literally just a farm in between, right?
Yeah. So we've got two farms in Virginia. So in Arlington, we've been open for maybe 3 years now. And as I was saying, we took over a much larger space because we were trying to figure out to do this dance for what does it really take? What things don't we know or are anticipating are going to happen? And so that's worked really well. And it's next to a Dogtopia, which is a franchise, and it's like next to some things. And
it's great.
It's not obvious, that it's there, but people over time have learned to come and pick up, and it's been really good. We're building a new farm, which will open this spring in Fairfax, Virginia. So just a few miles, away. And this is more of like a ground up build for us. And now we'll have a farm stand, which is really a core part of our model. So we built that farm stand sort of on the interior of the existing building, but we expect people to come and get and kind of be involved and connected, to the food, to the people, right? And that's been a real joy and I think value to what's happened at Arlington and allowed us to expand and keep expanding, from there.
And so if we walked into this store, is that
farm?
Yeah, farm.
We
store.
just call it a farm. Yeah.
Okay.
It's like the original garage startup. Like it's basically a garage door, painted Area 2, and then like we're inside doing it. It's so fun. It's just like the coolest place ever.
And what's the variety of crops that you can purchase there? I mean, you got blueberries. You mentioned carrots before. We don't
grow blueberries, but we operate the farms on a model which is called a CSA. It stands for Community Supported Agriculture. So it's kind of a traditional market garden or small farm model where you take a proportion of what the farm grows and then customers, community members, they buy a portion of it. So we have, a certain number of shares that are available every week. And in a traditional CSA model, I think the struggle, I've participated in them, over the years, is it's kind of what they would call farmer's choice. Like whatever they're growing or is available, you just get. And so that often is like you get a week where you just get a bucket of beets and you're thinking to yourself, what the fuck do I do with these beets? Like, I don't even know how to peel them. I'm baking them. I'm pickling them. I'm making beet chips. You're doing all these like crazy things that are slightly unnatural. So the first thing we wanted to do was to simplify the CSA model, which would be to give people some comfort to know what they're going to get. So we always have a lettuce or a green, a root vegetable, a microgreen, an herb, and then like a specialty or like a pantry item that goes together. So customers are essentially buying that bag, every week. And so at any time you might see hundreds of things growing, but each week it's some combination of those 5 items.
Okay. So you basically just wanted to make sure that what they're getting, they'll naturally see some utility value in it right away without having to like modify, like you're talking about beet chips and whatever.
You want the utility for the customer to be really useful, right? Yeah. You want a regular, neighbor, to say, I know what to do with this. I'd say also we want to challenge people to try new things. The variety and what you get at the store is the absolute worst, possible products that you can get. I mean, 10 years ago, probably, I went to a farmer's market in San Mateo, California, and a guy had these like green bean things and they were called garlic scapes. I lived almost my entire life not knowing. So, a garlic bulb actually shoots out a stalk, right? And that has the texture of a green bean and the taste of a garlic, right? It's fantastic. They're not super common to see like at a grocery store, but it's the kind of thing that if you have them or if you're growing them, people really value. And they're like, how did I not know this existed? Or like Brussels sprouts got hot,
yes,
for some reason. And so you can push people a little bit if you give them guides and you educate them on simple things that they can do, but expecting everyone to come home and make coq au vin versus, adding some herbs to their pizza or make a sandwich or make an omelet. It's better to give people a range of things that fit naturally into their life that they can benefit, especially as they're thinking more about getting more fiber, getting more nutrients, just eating healthier, taste, flavor.
Yeah.
And so we want to be like, again, what I would describe as a differentiated staple, right?
And what has the response been like from the community? Like, do you have, I don't know what the word, allocation left over where like not enough people have signed up for the CSA?
Never. Yeah. So we've sold basically 100% of what we've produced since the beginning, like every single week. So I think what that tells me is that there's just an incredible amount of demand. And because we're about 2 miles from the Pentagon, we see a really interesting mix of people, right? We see people who are enlisted service members. We see people who are living alone. We see families. We see everyone in between. We accept SNAP benefits at the farm. We see just everything. People really care about the quality of their food. They care about supporting local. They have different goals. And so we just see the gamut of folks. And yeah, we've never had anything go to waste or be unsellable, basically.
That's amazing. I think there's 2 aspects I want to learn more about. One is, let's talk about the quality. I think everyone can kind of understand, okay, this is the new modern farm and you guys are producing it and then it's getting sold. So there's no middleman, which we've gone through the traditional system and all the different distribution points that it has to get to before you as the end customer are eating it.
Sure.
But still, I still go to a Whole Foods and
so do
Driscoll's berries, right,
yeah,
are there, and everything's organic and it's supposed to be really healthy. But then you read online, and it's like, oh, like no, well, technically the farms they're spraying it potentially with like pesticides and all these things, and like it gets honestly frustrating as someone who tries to be healthy. You're just like, well, this was supposed to be the healthy berry, but apparently it's got like chemicals in it that could kill me. Is there any type of nutritional value that you can talk about that a product like yours has versus what you might be getting at a grocery store, even if it says organic and has all the healthy labels on it?
Well, let me say a couple things about it, because food is a really big space and there's lots of different utilities for different things. So let's just take an example of like a tomato, for instance. Anyone knows who's grown a tomato or had an heirloom tomato? Heirloom's just a fancy word for not like commodity, right? That there are tomatoes that are really good to have on a sandwich or to eat. And then there are other ones which are going to go into salsa And like, it kind of doesn't matter as much because it's going to be mixed with vinegar and pepper and onion, there's like a whole other thing
Yeah.
that's going on. When you wouldn't take like your best, most heirloom tomato and then douse it
No.
in,
Oh, yeah.
whatever it is. So there's, just like these kinds of, spectrums on it. And so you see a lot, of that. So if you're going to make strawberry pancakes in the morning or something with those, yeah, then maybe that's like the case, or depending on sort of the, the volume piece of it, from there. Interestingly, the thing is, as it relates to nutrition, is there's not a lot of information at the store. When you go and buy something from the frozen section, if you flip the box over, you'll see it says calories and nutrition. You don't see that in fresh. And there's some reasons, for that. But one thing that like people are starting to get hip to is that plants, because they're living, they degrade over time. So if you're going and getting spinach, which is known to be high in vitamin C, if it's traveled on a bus, on a train, to a depot, to a warehouse, by the time it gets to you, it's actually going to have very little, if any, vitamin C left. And so just the general proximity provided is a much better proposition when it's available, if it's available, which is like what we try to do. And then I think there's a third area of work where you can start to do more studies around that and do those in really scientific ways. There's simple ways to do it, which is like, there's this thing called a Brix meter where you can basically squeeze plants and then use a light refractor to see how much sugar content is there. It gives you sort of like a proxy for how nutrient dense the things are. But I think basically if you look from, there's different uses for it. There's obviously a degradation that happens through distance, which most products that you're going to get have traveled thousands of miles to get to you. So just being closer is an advantage for aroma, taste, and so forth. And then third, I think there's actual, more work to show people the peer-to-peer kind of distinguishing factors.
Yeah. The density of nutrients. That's an interesting. I would love for you guys to be able to like get into that at some point to be able to show, because
I'm working on it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard to know what the baseline is. I think there's some new studies. I think either BYU or University of Utah have done some really interesting studies on this, but it's frankly, it's a kind of a green field. There's not a lot out there. But there are studies that are showing things like a carrot today has less nutrient density than it did just a decade ago. Some of this, though, I think there are simple reasons for it. More and more, one of the reasons farmers are getting 16 cents to the dollar, one of the reasons it's hard to work through that supply chain is that the store says back to the distributor and to the grower, I need this thing to last 15 days.
Yeah.
And so what do? You start selecting, you start manipulating, you start picking things that meet those standards at the cost of other standards like color, flavor, nutrition, along the way. And so that's why you get there. It's not that the carrots are not capable of providing it. It's just these things become in conflict with one another. And when you move the farm, those constraints just go away. Like, what does it matter if the arugula that I produce can sit for 14 days if you get it tomorrow?
Yeah.
Right. It's just going to be better naturally.
How did you attack the pricing and even like the tech stack? Because this farm is a retail store, right? There is a economic reality to this where you're paying rent next to that Dogtopia, right? Yeah. So how did you think through that and what would work with customers?
I mean, and I think this is sort of the thing that caught up to the other folks is that there is a grounded reality, right, to it, and you're going to get caught into it. What the thing that if you can take away is all the loss, the margin loss to selling through someone else, then maybe you have a good place to start from. But yes, I mean, a farm could, unless a developer wanted to give you Madison and Park, at a good deal, like it doesn't make any sense to build it in the middle of Manhattan or something to that effect. So that those are obviously key drivers. But I do think starting with what is the price of organic, at the store is a good place to anchor, and then to use it, because obviously, the price of food is not totally inelastic. Like people, they want, to get value for what they're getting. You can only claim and show how much difference there is, but at the end of the day, it's still a cucumber or a radish. Like
Yeah.
I mean that's what it is. And I'm sure like everyone, it's like, I mean, I got ice cream the other day from a place. I won't put them on blast, but like it was like $8 for a scoop of ice cream. I was just thinking to myself, that's like kind of crazy,
Yeah.
and so no, we want to be like on par, and we are today on par with we're a certified organic farm. We want to be on par with organic at the store, and we think that's a good place to look, even though we provide more value, and that works really well for us.
Yeah, it definitely it's a hot topic right now within like the restaurant
Yeah, yeah,
franchise
yeah,
world, right?
yeah.
The pricing
The
of
McDonald's, the haves, the have-nots. Yeah, I
yes.
see.
Yeah,
I
it's
see the McFranchise guy.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Very hot topic. Well, you're franchising it today.
Yeah,
I know.
yeah, yeah. Since last Tuesday, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So congrats
Thank you. Yeah,
on
super exciting.
being live.
Yeah, yeah.
Was that always the plan to franchise?
Yeah.
And maybe even because we haven't talked about this yet. I know right, you guys, when we've gone through the tech and everything you built, you had to raise venture for that. So yeah, like has franchising been the start since you raised?
Yeah, franchising was always the thing, and the reason for that is we sometimes we called it different things, but we always wanted to basically create more farmers, create more founders, right? Create people they work with, and have this model of behind the farmer is another farmer, which is the best of like support, which is the best of like having a system, setting standards, helping people be really successful. And so that was always the goal, from the beginning. And yeah, I mean that's what we were doing as we built the Arlington farm, is to test the replication, of it. And then our ultimate goal is to be able to have a farm within 10 miles of 90% of everyone in the United States. So we've sort of been working towards that as a sort of a singular goal since the beginning.
Yeah, and I mean what you just said there, having a farm within 10 miles of everyone in the U.S. So this can, I'd imagine, then the model, right, like the prototype. If we were looking at like the FDD, right, it probably outlines like the desired square footage of a particular site.
Yeah, exactly. So the first thing I was saying, so we wanted to use technology to make it smaller. So we think a farm can fit in a space that's less than 5,000 square feet. So there's lots of those spaces.
Yeah.
Every city that I'm talking to about land use rights, about real estate developers, there are a lot more of those than there are half city blocks for a greenhouse, or industrial warehouses that are within proximity to populations. Sometimes it's offices, sometimes it's old gas stations, sometimes it's parking lots, sometimes it's big box retail that have gone out. There's all sorts of different, but there's a lot of land opportunity, which is really kind of at the core of it. But we're looking at like less than 5,000 square feet for like a 10-mile territory.
Okay. And is there anything unique about that 4-wall model? Like does the height of the ceiling have to be a certain?
Yeah, the ceilings do have to be a little high. So you're looking at like 18-foot ceilings. At Fairfax, we're going ground up, so we're building our own structure. But our model today is to use existing, and we still see that there's a lot of potential, for that.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking like, classic food franchise, or a lot of the franchises just end up in like a strip mall, like a
strip malls all have them. Yeah.
Oh, so do you think though that like will that ceiling requirement could be an impediment
I mean,
there?
if you went to a Best Buy or a Toys R Us or Circuit City, or
okay, so like the shopping centers type.
They're definitely all available. Yeah.
Cool.
Sometimes those places are coming in like larger, and so you're having a conversation, which is like, can I take a proportion, of this?
Yeah.
And people, seem to be very amenable, to it.
And so let's talk about like the economics of it. And maybe we'll start with the investment. What is the range, I suppose, in the FTD? And I gotta imagine just setting up the farm, like the equipment and stuff, is probably gonna make it the bulk of whatever this range is.
Yeah. So everything to get started, is somewhere between like $307,000 and $471,000. That gets you started. All the equipment, technology, seeds, soil, inputs, working capital, et cetera. For the first period. So it's an investment, for sure. But I think it's in a good range, and I think it. There's a lot of value that we're providing, for folks underneath that.
Yeah. I mean, no, look, within the landscape of brick and mortar franchises, that's I'd say it's on the lower end, honestly. Most are pushing north of $500,000 today. So is there anything in the item 19 of the FTD?
I mean, we didn't disclose an item 19 to get started. We sort of did it strategically. Like, first, we want to have a conversation with people we're expecting our first farmers to be like owner operators, right? And so we're going to be working with people to start one, to put all of the resources and capital we've raised to make them successful. And so we wanted to really get people to understand what our worldview is, for them to understand what the ownership is, and not to do a lot of this sort of like spreadsheet comparison that sometimes I see people doing in this. And then secondly, like we want to have more data to, before having a 19, so that, it's more consistent across geographies, across, representative. It's not, people saying, well, it's your farm, you run it this way, you've got all these people and so forth. So we made a little bit of a choice, we're continuing to work on it. But lots of good understanding about how the economics of the farm work and how people can feel comfortable with the investments that they're going to make and our ability to support them. And we've raised a lot of money. Most of it is to support people being successful.
Interesting. Well, is there anything like if you can see the prices, and maybe is there any way for folks to just understand, like, all right, well, if I open a farm, I need to do X volume to cover rent. Like I just think from a franchising perspective, that's going to be something that they're probably going to try to figure out to some.
Yeah, I think anytime you're making an investment, like you're going to do that, and people, I think, should be able to have a good understanding of how the model works, why we've chosen to use a CSA model, why it's important to not monocrop, why it's important to have a basket of things, why it's important to be thoughtful about your real estate choices, right? Those underlying costs to it. Why going direct saves you 84% loss as compared to other things. And so I think from there, folks should be able to understand how the investment works and, the opportunity. I think also the trends, right? The organic fresh food space has been one of the fastest growing out there. It's gone from $1 billion to, $90 billion, if I'm remembering that correct. But it's growing really, really fast. And so I think people will be able to see all the tailwinds that are pushing them, forward. And I think essentially it's essential for people to come to the farm to see how people interact with it, to see the opportunity for additional accretive revenues, at the farm stand and all the opportunities that are presented for being a local, leader.
Yeah. Who do you think your ideal first franchisee is? I imagine they don't need to have farming experience. And if there's anything I've learned from this conversation, there's not that many who really do have like direct farming experience at this point, given what's happened to that whole industry.
Well, I think first it's essential. Like the whole value proposition I'm trying to make is that it's essential that you have a relationship with the person that's growing your food. And so to then run a business where you could be like, I don't know, in the Bahamas while a bunch of guys are like farming, in your local city. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. I mean, we see the value, being around that, like around the butcher and, around having these relationships. And I think, especially with what's going on with AI, with the way cities are transforming, I think a lot of people are looking for changes in their own career where they are more involved, where they're building things for themselves, not building things for other people. And so to us, just at least at the beginning, especially as you're continuing to evolve the model, like it's essential that like you be involved. Now, look, everyone lives on a spectrum. Like some people are like really focused on, I want to like grow the stuff. Some people are like hyper on the sales side of it. These are teams, right? And we want people to live somewhere on their spectrum, but to take pride in, I'm growing an essential good for my community. I'm the face of it. When something goes wrong, when something goes right, like I'm there, for them. And so we see these people coming from a wide variety of backgrounds, whether it's veterans, people who've grown up in rural communities who like are exposed to farming, but like don't want to live where they want to live. They don't want to live, back home. This is why the generational land transfer has been so tricky. People have been working as like executives in other companies or run small businesses. I mean, all this experience, like even my own experience, all this experience you have, leading teams, managing P&Ls, doing sales, everything, right? It's all farming. Like we'll teach you the plant stuff. That's relatively straightforward. Those are the skills that really matter, especially when you're running a business. And that's the thing, like farming is a business. And so it makes a lot of sense.
I mean, it's so interesting to think that.
Do you want to do it? You want
Well, you've only been doing this, less than a month. So you're really like
1 week on the franchise.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Did you do like an announcement? Did you flip a switch on your website? Like, do you have a some conversations already going, or
Yeah. So when I say 1 week, like, so we released the FDD in February. We did a little press announcement last week. It's had some pickup, and we've received, hundreds of inquiries in from people and kind of the core target markets that we think are best to get started in. So those are like Charlotte, Atlanta, South Florida, Austin, Nashville, Columbus.
And how did you arrive at those cities? It's like just good starting points.
A bunch of different things. One, we look at like the growth of those areas as like natural places. We looked at some of like the land issues, the opportunities to get good underlying like real estate and how the cities are transforming themselves. The other part of it is that the food, like what's going on in there. Maybe give you like the thing I was trying to think about was Philadelphia is a really great city to do business in. My brother has lived in Philadelphia. It actually has a really rich kind of like CSA, like Lancaster Amish, like farming community that's kind of associated there.
Yep.
And so we think our farms will do really well there over time. But in some of these other cities, like it's so differentiated, like that, it's hard to get fresh, in South Florida. It's hard to get some of these things. We give ourselves a little bit of room to, build upon. They already have existing, agricultural communities that are good, and this can be a nice extension of that to kind of accelerate it. So it's a combination of all those things.
Something I read about as far as vertical farming is the energy usage has been at times for different groups.
Sure.
It can be pretty high because I guess you got the lights running on the plants. And have you guys done anything to like try to reduce that, or like, is that a concern of the models? Maybe like utility bills are going to be really high for a franchisee, or?
So we have, but it's a totally wrong question to be asking.
Okay.
So, and I'll walk you through why.
Yeah.
So you can't outsun the sun. Okay. Like that.
Yeah.
Sure. That makes sense. But it goes back to what I was saying before, which is that if you're trying to outsun the sun and then distribute the things through trucks and planes and barrels and depots and so forth, that is obviously a losing proposition.
Yeah. Good luck.
Right. And so, but if you move the farm and you don't do the distribution, then yes, there are small inefficiencies, there. But also, from what I was describing, the core technical innovation is not fighting the physics, is kind of working through it. So we use 25% less LEDs. We don't have any of these expensive HVAC things. So we just really don't see that as being an issue at all.
Yeah.
Right. We're spending like tens of dollars a day on electricity, not thousands of dollars a day. So it's really de minimis as it like kind of shows up. But it stems from this sort of, I think, like rational sort of failure that the other folks kind of walk themselves into, which is where I'm going to try to outsun the sun and then change nothing else about the model. Well, I mean, that obviously doesn't work. It's similar to like the discussions having like, if you're going to try to build a data center in space, some other component of it is going to have to change to be in your favor. And so for us, the key is what changes is moving the farm, right? If you move the farm, you go direct to people, you produce higher quality stuff, you get a much better value, for it.
And so if, your first group of franchisees, they purchase the territory, they open their...
Purchase the farm.
Purchase the farm. Is there, and there doesn't have to be, right? Like I think some of the best chains or franchises today haven't changed a thing, right? Like I just did a big episode on Wingstop.
I love Wingstop, yeah.
Yeah, and like their menu has barely evolved over the years. Like they've added a few more sauce flavors, and they've added tenders and a chicken sandwich. Those are like basically the only two menu additions since the original 9 wing flavors they had.
Yeah.
And then you have like Raising Cane's, who's the like ultra. They're the gold standard for simplicity. It's just been chicken tenders and fries since 1996 when they started.
That's awesome.
But for you, do you see like an evolution of this where it's like, okay, we're going to start here, and over time we think we can get the tech to do X, Y, and Z, and that can impact franchisees' business in a positive way?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was just telling my team, we were just talking about this yesterday. And so we do see a roadmap, and I'll lay it out for you. And it's basically like today, people will know the farms as a place where they can get fresh produce. but we think that can evolve. And in our farm stand, there's also other things that you can purchase that like complement. So think like dressings or salts or, honey, right? Or maybe like fresh farm eggs. We're not going to have chickens at our farms, but there are local providers. And so I think over time, what we'd like to see is not only the production, but the market, come together. So you're seeing as a singular place to come from. And like maybe the idea of like going to a farmer's market becomes less necessary. Where if you go to a farmer's market today, it's really like a thing people do on Saturday. It's kind of like a weird Renaissance fair, in my opinion. A farmer's market that had very little to do with farmers. There's like a dog guy, a dog bone guy. There's like a muffin guy. There's a pizza truck guy. There's a coffee guy. And I just observe people like walking around with their dog. Or actually, I was at a farmer's market in DuPont Circle. And there was a couple walking with a cat in a stroller. It was really very strange, type of thing. But there's very little to do with farmers. Now in California, when I went to farmers market, hundreds of farmers are showing up. That's where I got the garlic scapes, or it's where you meet like the guy who actually grows fresh wasabi and all these different things. But in most places, the farmers market has become this kind of like, just hang out kind of Saturday thing, which is great. And I think our farms will take that place and add more to it. But what I was telling my team the other day is that oftentimes I think when people change their menu, they do it out of fear, right? And when you have a really good menu like we do, and you see really high utilization in terms of what we produce to what we sell, when you see really high loyalty, when that loyalty goes really long term, there's not a lot of reason to add more to it when it's not thoughtful in what you add. And so we're very cautious about like what we add, but for it to be very complementary. So cut flowers, for Mother's Day, or we're starting to integrate like, I'll give you two examples. We've just started to integrate like seasonal experiences into the farm. And what I mean by that is a lot of our customers garden, we grow seedlings, and now we sell seedlings, right? It's a very natural part of what we do. It's not an adjacency. It's just an extension of it. And we've done really well selling seedlings to people. And it's another place for us to touch them. In the fall, we'll have our first pumpkin patch,
So
right?
sweet. Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be like really cool. It's a fun thing. And this is more in the regular or the broader vision of the farm being a gathering place, a third space. And so go from producer to, marketplace, where people gather. But yeah, I don't think we'll start, raising goats or something really along those lines.
Yeah. I think
Does that make sense?
Totally. Yeah. I mean,
And so I think that's accretive that people will see like there's more. Like the farm should be your base in your economic model, and that, people should understand how that operates. And I think the thing, because I've studied the Wingstop thing very closely for many years, and I think that's the kind of thing they do. They've been able to add some very small things that on a per unit basis, are not, if I remember the chart correctly, like they went from like 1.2 to 1.3, maybe to 1.6 per unit, like average. That's not a huge like jump, like 1.1 to 1.6, and some people are like, oh, who cares, right? But when you do that across a system, obviously it's massive. And, so we kind of see that type of thing being really key. People come for the staple, and then maybe we'll have some fresh tea with some herbs. Like, it's really basic, additional pieces.
Yeah, I think, in the world of restaurants, you call it menu creep, right? It's very easy to think, I should have burgers and chicken sandwiches and this and that. But what it does to the ops and the messaging and the positioning of your brand, like there's so many facets that you really want to consider. And I don't think it's a surprise that a lot of the biggest fast food chains, or the ones who have what I would call like the highest customer affinity, like an In-N-Out Burger, or like In-N-Out Burger,
or a Chick-fil-A,
or a Chick-fil-A, yeah, right. Like they pick their lane and they just try to dominate it, and they haven't skewed from it in decades. So,
this is like the core, like my core sort of thinking about entrepreneurship today is really craftsmanship, excellence. Those are really key. And too many people, I think, have been quick to go to like be a marketplace, like allow infinite choice. I think you degrade a part of yourself when you do that, but you also end up saying like, well, if I have infinite choice, like people they stop coming for the thing that you do, and they just come for the other stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so you have to be careful, I think. And so those are some examples: the seedlings, the pumpkin.
I kind of glossed over this. I think it'd be cool to learn, like, what does a franchisee need to learn how to do, right? Are they constructing this vertical farm if they buy a franchise? And is there a lot of training that goes into operating it? And I'm not a gardener, but like managing the soil, all these things that go into making the crops.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to support everyone from seed to harvest, right? So that's, you can think of it like menus or recipes or operating procedures for how do you manage the plants, how do you manage the biology of the soil, how do you package and, give the right proportions of things, how do you meet the right food safety standards along with like the local regulators. So, I mean, the whole thing. I mean, I think that the growing part is very teachable. Most of the people on our team, we've been very successful at teaching them today. With when you have a really good, expert kind of core team working with them, then it's very straightforward for folks. And I think people learn to enjoy that it's a living system. Like we're not manufacturing pencils. So, like they don't all come out the same. And the hardest thing probably for some people is to learn to enjoy that part of it.
Yeah.
Like there's a certain like, well, the plants kind of have a mind of their own. And our job is to like not kill them and to like make sure that they have their best, biological determination.
Well, it's funny. For some reason, when you're saying that, what came to mind is I forget the name of it, but there was some. I don't know what your opinions on Shark Tank are, but
one of my investors is a shark, Alexis Ohanian. He's a great guy. Yeah.
Oh no way.
Shark Tank. Yeah.
He was on Shark Tank. That's the Reddit co-founder.
Yeah, the Reddit. Yeah.
Oh, I never. I guess. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Point is, there was early on, and I think like season 4 or something, there was a startup where they took the vegetables from farms that were basically they came out ugly, for lack of a better way of saying.
Yeah. Misfit Market.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. And like,
there have been a couple. Imperfect Foods and Misfit Market were the two big players. Yeah.
I just remember learning about it, and they were just like, yeah, like there's nothing wrong with it. Like they're perfectly good. There's literally nothing wrong with it. They just look aesthetically not as pleasing as the normal carrot or the normal whatever. And like it's just interesting kind of.
Well, it's an interesting example. Those two companies have merged, and there were two of them. There was Imperfect Food and Misfit Market. I forget which one acquired which one, but essentially they did what I'm cautioning people against, which is they became marketplaces, and now you can get like Chiquita bananas and oat milk and Beyond Meat, and like can get all these things like on their website. And I think the thing that I met these guys recently through Alexis who are launching a satellite to an asteroid to mine like rare minerals. So if you stay with me, this will make sense.
I'm on the edge of my seat here.
And I was like, wow, this is like the coolest thing ever. I love these guys. They're super great. I asked them, how much money did you raise to do this? And they told me, 10. They told me some number like 10. And I was like, just out of curiosity, like how much money does it cost to launch a satellite to the asteroid to do that? They're like $9.99, like the whole thing. And I think when you're trying to prove out, like our vision is that people will care about farms. We think we've proven that. We think that there's a lot of good data for it. We think people want to do it as a job. We think like there's a lot of good data for it. We see like so many people coming and asking us, about it. What you want to do is like continue to prove that out. But what you see when you do the marketplace is you start to get at the core thing and it erodes it. And when that happens, you see those businesses start to really struggle because you've given too much choice into the end product. And now it's like, is the idea of the imperfect food or the misshapen pepper, does anyone like really care? Or, did you start to take away from it? And I think that's ultimately what happened to those folks. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it does. Yeah.
But I actually love that these guys were going to take every penny of their startup to prove the thing. And that's, I think that's the best way to run.
Yeah, keep the main thing the main thing.
Keep the thing the thing. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, donuts on the sun. Keep the thing the thing. Yeah.
Yeah, stuffy donuts on the sun. Once you have one of these up and running, like how many employees does it take to manage?
So our farm is run every day by about 6 to 8 employees.
Okay.
And then the great thing about them is that we have a sort of a limited number of CSA members. So you should be able to support 400 families or 400 people a week through the CSA. And that's slightly counterintuitive to people. But it's really, I think, essential to our model is that you max the size of the space so that you build the next farm rather than continue to expand your farm for the simple reason, which is that if you go too big, and it could be at 410, 450, 500, it might be even a little larger, than where we are today. And there might be room for that. But at some point, you'll find that you tip over where you wake up and you say, today I actually have 10,000 extra tomatoes. And I don't know whatever I'm making.
Oh, okay.
Today I have N extra tomatoes.
Yeah.
And it's much more difficult at some point to sell those than it is if you keep your limit there. And so we found that this number, it's kind of that Goldilocks. It's not too small, like, maybe the container guys were doing. It's not too big like these plant factories. The plant factory guys woke up and said, who's going to buy all this stuff? I literally have tons and tons and tons of food. And so if you keep it to a place where you can always move it, then that's where you get into a place where we are today, which is like we can move the food consistently to an average customer that's like 3.1 miles from our Arlington facility. It allows us to build 8 miles away another farm that's totally saturated with like local, and you just keep doing that over. And so you're looking at a place like Washington, D.C., the broader Washington, D.C. area, like could have 5, 7, farms like pretty easily. And that's really exciting, right? For cities, for people, for business, so forth.
Yeah. Is there any like checks and balances in place where if I'm operating as a franchisee, either, I don't know if it's through software where you're able to track like that I'm rotating the crops at the right time, or, any measurements and ways that you can monitor that, or even myself as a franchisee.
So all of our farms, they all grow the same thing. They're all working off the same menu, the same sort of inputs, which we've standardized. And then, we've built a lot of the, standard operating procedures and check-ins and tooling to make that very, smooth. And the smoothness of it is both in terms of the thing in the farm that you want to avoid is catastrophic failure. And so let's say like a crop takes 6 weeks to grow. Some problems don't materialize like till week 5 or week 6. And if you're not looking for them, if you're not running regular checks, you'll run into. But if you do those things, there are counter, activities that you can take. There are maneuvers you can take. And what you're really just trying to avoid is catastrophic failure. Unlike outside, like there's not going to be a tornado that like takes out. There's not going to be locusts like in the Passover story or something. Like there's not going to be something that just like wipes it out. But we're susceptible to bugs, we're susceptible to all sorts of different things. And so we have all these mechanisms built in for how the team runs and the procedures to avoid, right? So when you see something, hey, what do I do about that? And we all kind of work together. That's what I mean by behind every farmer is another farmer. Like there's no beautiful, rugged man in America just standing, looking over the sunset, thinking, I've done it today. There has always been a network of people working together, sometimes out of necessity, sometimes for economics, sometimes just for human reasons.
Camaraderie.
Yeah, right? And those networks have always existed. That, in my understanding, is the essence of a franchise. Standards, transparency, shared common success. And that's why like farms, I think, have always been sometimes franchises in disguise. And what makes the opportunity to be, if not the first, one of the first, in the space, like a really good opportunity. It's just a hand in glove fit for what the model should be. It should not only be pizza restaurants and fast chicken places. Farms have really always been, like this. Maybe they just haven't always filed FDDs. So I'm excited about that part. That was cool.
That's pretty sweet. Yeah, it's interesting. The from my understanding that the like first franchise is founded by a woman, Martha Matilda Harper. I think in the 1890s. I wrote about it couple years ago. So
it was a farm?
No, it wasn't a farm.
Oh, you're the first franchise ever.
Oh, did I say farm?
Yeah. No, you said the first franchise.
Yeah, first franchise. Yeah, it was like a hair salon, early date, like 1890s into the 1900s hair salon.
Cool.
She's like known as the mother of franchising, but maybe farmers are the true OG franchises.
I mean, in my view, if you just take franchise, farmers are the original entrepreneurs in this country, right? And the whole idea of planting, this will be the 250th anniversary of this country. This thing is founded solely on take some seeds, go build a life for yourself, own something, have a sense of independence. But when you own that something and you create the independence, you don't do it for yourself. You do it for others. You do it for people. Who's going to eat this stuff? Sometimes your family, but a lot of it is you're going to feed neighbors. You're going to work together because you're not going to grow everything. We don't grow oranges. We don't grow pears. We don't grow watermelons. We don't grow blueberries, strawberries, right? You always have to work with others to make it work.
It's so cool.
Thank you.
I really think the buy-in from customers and it's the mission. It's such a frequently brought up topic today. The lack of quality. I feel like every week on Twitter, I'm seeing someone comes back from Europe. They're like, I ate XYZ food.
Favorite,
And
I went to Europe. I lost weight.
Exactly.
Because I ate.
It's like the food's so much more natural there. And like, I mean, I get it. It's true. But yeah. So like, I mean, I think the everyone's going to be behind the mission that you guys have.
Yeah, I think when people are given the choice, like
Yes.
it's like a no-brainer. My family never thought about not going to the orange grove to get there. It's the most Florida thing ever to get oranges from like the guy. But why would you get it any other way if it's there? It just makes sense.
Yeah.
So
this is I don't want this to sound like antithetical to your whole mission of the community aspect of it, which I think is great. I'm just thinking of
yeah, go for it.
There's this trend of convenience, which I don't like. I'm not for it. So I like in certain respects, right? I mean, just you think about, right, like today. I mean, I could pull out my phone, I can call an Uber, I can Amazon Prime something that'll probably be at my apartment tomorrow. I can DoorDash a meal. I mean, these things are not all good financial decisions, obviously. But like, the point is like this digitization and the trend in a lot of, at least in the food world of franchising, has been towards convenience wins. Have you ever thought about that aspect at some point for the farms, where it's like I can sign up for the CSA and it's almost like just this delivery service of fresh food right to my doorstep?
Sure. I mean, like, I don't hate it. To start, we really try to focus on building relationships with people. I mean, we have such a small kind of like universe of people who can get the CSA. Like, we can't gin up any more plants. Like, there's only so many available. So,
finite.
I mean, it's slightly finite. I think scarcity is a thing that people are afraid of. And like, we find that to be like really empowering. Like, people call me all the time, like, hey, I want like 20 pounds of mint. Thank you. Okay, great. We don't have any mint. Like, it's not a grocery store. People have been tricked by sometimes the availability of hitting a button. That easy button just like brings it to your door. Those easy buttons aren't going away with like what we propose, but for people who, want to have those relationships or who understand what the quality is or are focused on different things in their life, then we're available. And I think ultimately, like, that's our goal, is grow, sell 100% of it, continue to move farms. And I think it, gets bigger from there. So, we're not, stressed by someone who can't bother to stop by, to do it. I do think that it's one of the interesting things that we think about in the real estate. And a lot of our choices have been in places where maybe they're not the high end, like retail, but they're often in places where people are cutting through neighborhoods. That's why gas stations have been such an interesting, real estate concept for me. Like, nobody has a gas station in their neighborhood. They have a gas station like on the edge of their neighborhood. If I'm describing, I'm sure there's a technical like real estate term for this, but like, there's usually, like in my neighborhood, like the gas station's like at the edge.
Well, yeah, they're usually like right off a highway stop and like so the outskirts of the town.
It's like where two neighborhoods like come together.
Yes.
And that's like a really ideal place for a farm. And the new farm we're building in Fairfax, it used to be a gas station. It's been vacant for 25 years, 100 years prior to today. It was a farm. It's going to go through a full transformation, but its proximity is like in a place where people, like many, many people are coming through. And that works really well, for us. So we're not expecting people to play padel, at the farm, but it certainly is convenient, I think, for when you're coming home from work or you're on your way to soccer practice, and so forth. And maybe there's opportunities for even more convenient things, especially for people maybe you're struggling to drive or something.
Yeah.
Along those lines. So
that I could totally see how that would be a very convenient spot for it. Is there any? Because I can tell how this connection with the farmer to the community is something that can really make this model tick. Is there anything within a location that you plan to almost localize, if that makes sense? Like, to give an example, and I wish I had a better one in my head right now, but I don't. I'm going to go with Shake Shack. I heard Danny Meyer, the founder of Shake Shack, on a podcast from a while ago. I think it was like 2019. They build every store and they have some memento from the town that it's in.
Oh.
Like the thing that I recall is their one of their Connecticut locations, which is right near Yale, has like a piece of the football stadium from some historical football game, and it's like built into the store, and they have a section of that Shake Shack location that like talks about it. And so like his whole thought was, which I think is a great thought, is like we want everyone to feel like this is my local Shake Shack. So yeah, anyway, anything like that you've thought of for people who are buying into Area 2 farms?
Yeah, I think the person running it.
Yeah.
That's the most local you can get. The reason that places try these gimmicks, like there's a Michigan Wolverines thing over there, is because there's no connection to the actual people running the store. And so, yeah, we do in our stores, like we have like sacks, like you can go onto eBay and you can buy old Virginia peanut sacks, like old farmer sacks. We'll use those to like decorate like some of the stuff. Like they're kind of fun. Like we're in Virginia, but ultimately the thing that makes it local is us.
Yeah.
It's the people. Like people know us. We're their neighbors. They actually know that. And I see the rest of those things as being like veneers. And it's kind of like, you know, the organic. We think organic is the gold standard for food quality. It, you know, it talks a lot about like the practices. It helps set a standard. It's the minimum standard for us. The highest standard is the quality and the craftsmanship and the excellence that we put into it. And so I think the most local thing that you can get, the most sort of take on it would be if Shake Shack had like local owners, which they don't.
Yeah.
Right. And so for us, that's way better. But yeah, I mean, we'll throw up a Michigan 2026 NCAA championship banner, you know, when it makes sense.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think I mean Shake Shack or even, you know, franchises, right? Like McDonald's started with every owner was local. It's got
what I prefer in this model is what Ace Hardware does, which is like I have friends who own Ace Hardwares, and they're often like something Ace Hardware. Right. And you kind of know that part of it. And I think that makes a lot of sense. Like it's a local guy, you know, running it, and they're getting all the benefits of the supply chain and the broader network that benefit the small local hardware operator. But they're almost all, at least the ones I see, like they're called something.
Yeah.
else.
It's like, it does seem Ace Hardware.
I think that's because they've done a lot of conversions, maybe.
Yes.
Is that the reasoning behind it?
I believe so.
But I do think that gives you a sense of that, like, it's not Home Depot.
Yeah.
It's Ace Hardware, but it's like, in my neighborhood, it's like Stroh-Snyder's Ace Hardware or Logan Hardware or Twins Ace Hardware.
Yeah.
Right? You see this kind of thing. And I think people get that that's the local hardware store. Like that's really cool.
Yep.
And so I see that as, you know, being a kind of a version of what I was describing.
When you play this out 10, 20 years, and you said this is your last company. You're like, I'm not doing another one. Like, there's no Area 3. Fill in the blank. It's
Area. Do Area 3.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Cool. We'll brainstorm that after the episode. Let's do the optimistic scenario. If Area 2 Farms works and it's a national farming franchise in 10, 20 years, you know, what does that look like? And then I think maybe, do you think that happens in tandem with the whole food distribution system changing? Or can this just coexist with, there's still going to be a million grocery stores? And
I think both, you know, I mean, I think the goal in business, too many people are trying to eat the pie, and my vision is to expand the pie. I think there's, like I said, there's two types of tomatoes. There's tomatoes for salsa, and there's tomatoes that like I want to eat, you know, independently of it. And so I think that really what happens, you know, from the business standpoint is, you're able to expand, right? To be in contact with people. There's probably some additional product, like, you know, localization that we're talking about. So in Georgia, peaches, or, you know, this and that. I think that the farmers, you know, are able to be more successful in the systems, you know, more consistently. I think the opportunities, you know, around that are just greater and greater. I'm sure there'll be grocery stores, you know, because there's always a need to get both cat litter, a number 6 candle, and a pizza at the same time. And so, you know, that's not a space. I thought that was a funny joke, but but I mean, if you want all three of those things simultaneously, then, you know, that's what you get there. And so I think, you know, our goal just make the pie, you know, make the pie bigger. But ultimately, there's no doubt that in the next 20 years, our cities are going to look a lot different than they have. Whether it's like the donut theories around downtowns to how people want to live and organize themselves, there's a lot of transformation. And our bet is that at the center of that, there's going to be places. Those places are going to be places of progress. Those places are going to provide real goods for people. They're going to be like what libraries were in the past, but they're going to produce, you know, things like food, continue to be libraries are great, you know, and you know, that's really where it's going to be. It's going to be more in the transformation of the city than the competition with like the grocery store.
Well, this has been an awesome conversation, man.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. So much. Yeah.
Fun.
From missiles to carrots.
We've run the gamut here. My closing question that I've been asking guests is, what person has played a big part of your success in life, but maybe doesn't get the credit that they deserve?
Well, yeah, I mean, for me, it's so many people. It's not one person. I think it's really what drives what we try to do with the farm is to be a farmer behind a person. And any entrepreneur who's worth a shit knows that there are like 10, 15, 20 people behind it, from your family to people who don't have a vested financial interest but give their time, whether as friends or as advisors. I mean, it really takes a lot to just friends who can pick up the call and say, this happened, this is crazy, or, what do I do about this? So many people. I mean, I'm not here as a person of one, it's a person of 1,000. So.
Yeah, takes a village, man. Well, this is awesome, and I'm excited to see how you guys grow. And
yeah, thank you so
I'm
much.
rooting for you guys.
Oh, that's really nice of you. Thank you. I appreciate this, having me here. So yeah, this is cool.
Awesome.
I really want one of those Dunkins.
Yeah.
I've been staring at it the whole time.
Right down the street.
Yeah.
All right, man. Awesome. That's Pod. Hey guys, a few thoughts on that episode. So it's not every day that a venture-backed robotics company is stepping into franchising. So for me, I was excited to explore Oren's company and business model. There's a lot I like about it. I mean, the mission is great. It's no secret that accessing clean and quality food isn't nearly as easy as it should be. And as we talked about during that episode, that's kind of a downfall of the mass scaling of the food system in this country. And I think Oren does a good job of explaining how, like through the creation of this distribution system, that we have lost quality in the name of progress, as he puts it. So Area 2 can bring back that quality, and doing it by potentially having figured out the vertical farming business model, which, again, as we went through, has been a struggle for many startups in that sector. The asterisk on this for me at the moment, which probably won't come as a surprise to those of you who have listened to me for a while, is the unit economics of the farms aren't yet proven. I'm always a big proponent of an emerging brand having as much visibility as possible in their item 19 of the FDD. So we'll have to see how that plays out. But what Area 2 Farms is doing is truly a unique business. I mean, the fact that they have a farm literally next to a Dogtopia is kind of crazy. So to think that there might just be farms in your local strip mall one day is pretty wild. But again, it's early days for them. To me, I don't think they're going to have a hard time getting buy-in from the communities they enter, because the demand does seem to be there for people wanting food that they can trust. It's just, will the economics work, right? Will there be a return on investment that can generate buy-in from entrepreneurship communities? Because I think that's going to be very important for them to grow and scale nationally, which is what their ambitions are. And if they get it to work, I don't see why that vision won't come true for them. So anyways, to me, this was a really fun conversation and an interesting deviation from the typical franchises covered on this show. Hope you enjoyed, and we'll be back again soon.